Senator from the 27th.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that Senate Resolution 668 be lifted from the table.
Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Resolution 668 by Senator Dolezal of the 27th District. A resolution and others. A resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to authorize the General Assembly to provide by general law for the assessment of property taxes on property used primarily for the manufacturing, assembly, processing, or storage of products, or the housing of electronic equipment primarily used to process, store, or transmit digital information and data, to provide for related matters, to provide for the submission of this amendment for ratification or rejection, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Is there objection? All right, there is objection. Gentleman wish to speak to the bill? I mean, oh, I'm sorry. Do what now? You want to speak to your objection? All right, so Senator from the 27th would like to take SB or SR 668 off the table. Senator from the 41st has objected, so we'll just vote. All those in favor of taking it off the table vote yay. All opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the motion to remove from the table, the yeas are 29 and the nays are 22. Finish the caption, please.
Mr. President, the Committee of the Senate on Rules recommend that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Brass of the 6th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Rules offers the following substitute to Senate Resolution 668, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to authorize the General Assembly to provide by general law for the assessment of property taxes on property used primarily for housing electronic equipment that is primarily used to process, store, or transmit digital information and data, to provide for related matters, to provide for the submission of this amendment for ratification or rejection, and for other purposes. Mr. President, a fiscal note has been attached. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Senator from 38, what purpose do you rise?
Mr. President, I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 14th.
Without objection, Senator from 14th is excused. Recognize Senator from 27th. Trying to help local communities.
That's right, Mr. President. Simple amendment to the Constitution here. Essentially what we're doing is we're reverse engineering an opportunity that we see in local communities when data centers come into a community. They oftentimes build facilities that have a high property valuation. And oftentimes that property valuation really brings an influx of new revenue into schools via the tax digest and into the cities or counties.
Hold on, Senator. Hold on one second. Can we secure the door back there, please? This is actually a bill y'all need to pay attention to if you care about your constituents that each and every one of you represent. So go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I was saying, what we are seeking to do with this bill is to lower property taxes for businesses and homeowners in communities where a data center comes. Under current law, the Uniformity Clause of the Georgia Constitution requires equal millage rates for all classes of property. And so what that means is if a data center comes into a community and injects a significant amount of new property tax revenue, oftentimes the municipality could lower the rate, but they have to lower it for everyone to maintain the uniformity clause. What this constitutional amendment would allow is it would give local municipalities and school districts the option to create a subclass of property for the new data center, and it would allow them to levy a separate millage rate on the new data center in order to reduce the burden of taxation on other classes of property, which would be commercial and housing and industrial. So it's really simple. In my mind, we enter this session and finally have bipartisan support on the idea of getting rid of tax credits for data centers, which has frankly been a policy that many of us have disagreed with for a number of years. We passed a bill out of this chamber 2 years ago to do that. And this actually moves the needle in the other direction, which rather than subsidizing data centers, we are allowing data centers to subsidize local communities and local taxpayers. So, Mr. President, I will yield the well if there are no questions. If there are questions, I'd be happy to answer them as well.
You have a few questions, Senator. Recognize Senator from the 56.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the Senator yield?
Yes, Chairman, I do.
Senator, isn't this just a great local control bill, and we support local control in the Georgia Senate?
Yes, this does two things. One, it allows, obviously, the voters to decide, which is the ultimate form of local control, whether to make this available as a tool in the toolbox to their local elected officials, which would be another level of local control.
And Senator, would you further yield for one more question? Senator, in a year that affordability is the term we're always using, if this is done and passed by the voters and allowed, this could really make a difference to the homeowners and communities all over Georgia.
Senator, I think that we could see communities where property taxes on homes is completely eliminated by the new construction of some of these mega data center sites.
Great bill. Thank you.
Recognize Senator from the 26.
Thank you, Mr. President. Gentleman yield.
Yes, sir.
So, what are you saying, that you're going to zone property to be data centers and make the property commercial property, or is it going to be where I see all of these groups and citizens complaining about data centers coming next to their homes and homesteads?
Senator, the local decision for the zoning of a data center would still be a local decision. Nothing in this piece of legislation would inject the state into that process. What this bill, what this resolution would allow those same local decision makers, and frankly the school systems as well, which are not typically involved in a zoning process, but it would allow school systems also to essentially keep the millage rate the same if they've got $1 billion data center coming in, maintain the current millage rate just for that one property, but then lower the millage rate for every other property in their municipality. That's what this would allow them to do if they chose to do that at the local level.
Recognize Senator from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield,
I do.
could you elaborate on what a no vote looks like on SR 668?
Yeah, I think, Senator, Chairman, there's probably two layers to that. One, you're taking the opportunity for the local municipalities to pull this lever if they wish to pull it. You are taking that opportunity away from them, because again, there's nothing in here that is a mandate. But further downstream of that, what I would say is you are forcing homeowners and other commercial property tax owners in one of these municipalities where they might have pulled the lever, you're raising their taxes, because you are essentially preventing them from having this tax cut that would come by way of this resolution. I do.
Would you say this is the ultimate form of local control regarding data centers?
I do think this is us pushing local control down in a more significant way even than what it is now, because it is allowing them to take complete control of the tax revenue that may come along with these properties as well. Thank you, Chairman.
Recognize Senator from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield.
Yes, sir.
Senator, I think I just heard your explanation of what this bill potentially could do, in that they could have a separate class for a data center and use some of the taxing authority to lower the taxes on the residences, on the personal property. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, for all classes of property, because the uniformity clause would still be in existence for the other classes of property, but yes.
Senator, isn't it true that they could, if you will yield, that the reverse could happen? That the data center, a community competing to attract a large project, could actually lower their taxes and increase the taxes on the regular homeowners?
No, that would not be allowed in the bill. If you look at, and we would need to have underlying legislation here that spells this out. But what we would add to the Georgia Constitution on line 17 is the different rates or valuations, and here's the key, Senator, in order to reduce the burden of ad valorem taxation on other tangible property. So we would have a requirement in the Constitution that the separate rate for the data centers must be done to reduce the rate of the taxation of the rate on other property. We would, of course, need enabling legislation to spell out the mechanics of how that would happen, but the actual guarantee of the taxes going down for the other property owners would then become a constitutional protection in Georgia.
Senator, I see an or there on line 17, so it could happen, it could do one or the other. Is that correct?
Senator, this allows for the different, either different tax rate or different valuation. So either one of those would apply to the data center, and then after the or is in order to reduce the burden, which is what I was just spelling out. So I think the scenario that you're envisioning of the opposite of this happening is prevented in the plain reading of the language.
Senator, further you?
I do.
Senator, isn't it true that a lot of these municipalities would typically give these large industries tax credits to come in locally and other incentives to attract businesses in their communities?
Yes, sir. Then this would not prevent them from doing that. So the current municipalities that are choosing to do tax abatements, if that's the path that they want to go down, they can still do the tax abatements. In fact, they could still do both. Because what happens a lot of times is you'll see the abatement be for the first 10 years, and if they were to come out of the abatement and want to charge a separate millage rate to the data center, they would be able to do that as well. But this is not mandating anything at the local level. This is allowing the locals to choose if they want to implement this policy or not. And it actually could come alongside of an abatement package if that's what they wanted to do.
Senator, further to you?
Yes, sir.
Senator, isn't it true that these data centers will disproportionately use an excess amount of the natural resources in any community?
Certainly, Senator. One of the concerns has been power consumption, water consumption, and this is not an eye towards that. This is an eye towards, under the Georgia Constitution, local municipalities currently have the constitutional authority for land use decisions. So they currently have the ability to zone a property if they wish to for data centers. I'm staying out of that with this piece of legislation. I've joined other pieces of legislation to pull back the tax credits, some of those things. What we're looking to do with this resolution here is to simply allow them to lower the tax rate for the existing residents if a massive project comes into their community.
Senator, further you?
Yes, sir.
Senator, aren't you incentivizing the community to attract data centers by putting this carrot out there in front of them, when in fact those data centers could use excess amount of water? It could also lower the property values if they came anywhere near a large residential community?
Senator, I don't know that being able to charge a higher tax rate for a data center than every other commercial taxpayer in the municipality is a carrot. I actually think it's a recognition that these data centers, according to the studies, are coming regardless of what we do. In fact, 70%, according to the study that we saw in the Finance Committee, of the data centers that came to the state of Georgia were coming regardless of a tax credit, the existing tax credit or not. And so what we're looking to do here is allow the municipalities to pull on a thread of lowering taxes for the existing property owners should they choose to bring a data center to their property, and should they choose to bifurcate their tax
for one final question.
Yes, sir.
Senator, is it also true that this bill doesn't specify at all what those rates would be, either for the homeowner or for the data center?
That's 100% correct, Senator, because we would be putting those decisions in the hands of the local taxing authorities, both the school district, the county, and if applicable, the city.
And the same local centers that's trying to attract businesses who's also willing to give out incentives in terms of low values for properties, as well as using an excess amount of their natural resources. You're going to put that into the hands of those same county commissioners or city officials. Is that correct?
Senator, I'm not sure that I understood the question. Would you mind repeating it for me?
The locals are the ones who's trying to attract these data centers, but who's protecting the homeowners?
Well, Senator, I think that this bill protects this resolution protects the homeowners because it forces them to use the revenue generated from the higher millage rate that they may charge a data center in the line 17 that I've already pointed you to. That must be used to reduce the taxes for everyone else. So who's protecting the everyone else? And if this passes, would be the Georgia Constitution.
Thank you, Senator. I just don't see any numbers in here whatsoever. You say it could be lower, it could be higher. That could be on the margin, and without specifying in here, I don't see how the offset to the use of the natural resources could benefit homeowners, nor do I see how this constitutional amendment could benefit those in the community.
Thank you, Senator.
Recognize Senator from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, do you yield?
I do.
Senator, thanks for what you're trying to bring. I sit over here with my covey of counselors, and I got a question for you.
You are in Lawyer Row over there for sure.
Say that again?
You are in Lawyer Row over there now for
Lawyer
sure.
Row. Yes, sir. On line 11, well, first, I think the purpose of what you're trying to do is make it where you could actually levy a higher millage rate on data centers in order to lower the millage rate on property, on residential property.
That's right. Or keep the same millage rate for the data centers that it would be otherwise, and then lower the rate for everyone else. That's right.
The value, from what I understand, if the senator will continue to yield, of the data center is actually on the personal property, not the real property. Is that something that
Can you say that one more time?
I think the value add to the county is actually on the personal property, not on the real property. Would you agree? All the equipment they have inside, not necessarily the real.
Yeah, that's certainly a piece of it. But these mega sites for sure are
have some value
creating some real property, I think, property value as well.
The tax credit we have is to the personal property. I think it's now $1.5 billion. You and I talk and share a common disdain, I would say, for that credit. My question is, sorry I didn't get to talk to you about this earlier, the covey of counselors over here, do we need to add the words "or personal" on line 11 after the word "real," so that you would be able to charge a different millage rate on the real property and the personal property in order to make this more valuable?
Yeah, I would certainly be open to that. That would generate more revenue, I believe.
I've got the amendment, but I didn't want to catch you off guard, so if you'll sign on to it.
I don't even remember what committee this came through, Senator, so I'm not sure if we engrossed this or not. I've run a lot of bills.
Came through rules.
Well, there you go. It'll be a friendly amendment.
It wasn't engrossed. That's the Sweet James section right there. That's Sweet James Law Firm right there. So.
We can change it in the house. We can change it in the house. In the house? Yeah. To the Appropriations Chairman, thank you for that friendly amendment. That's something we'll have to address on the other side of the building, and you have my word that we will work on that should we get that far.
Recognize Senator from the 13th.
Senator Yield?
I do.
Senator, isn't it true that a county commission body can give tax abatements if they want to data centers?
Yes, sir. As I told the senator from the 10th, we don't change any of that. And they don't need to do anything with this bill, or they could exercise this bill to its full legal capacity. They could do abatements and not do this. They could do abatements and do this once the abatement expired. There's no limitation in terms of what this allows them to do.
And is it true that this bill absolutely has nothing to do with any kind of power usage, water usage, et cetera, that a data center may or may not use?
That is certainly true, Senator.
And last question, Senator. By passing this resolution, it would give counties the option to charge the difference of what and the tax they want to set up for it.
Yes, sir. That's on line 10, shall
10.
be authorized, not shall be required, right? So
Yes,
we're just giving more power to the locals as in their decision-making process to be able to have optionality in how they're dealing with this phenomenon.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator from the 41st.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the senator yield?
I do.
Senator, how many votes does it require, are required to pass this resolution?
2/3 of the chamber, which would be 38.
Do you further yield?
I do.
Does not therefore mean that the minority party is needed in order to get your resolution passed? Is that not true?
That would be correct, yes.
Senator, have you worked with the minority party in any way to try to ensure that this resolution can pass, and worked with us to figure out how we can agree with one another on other bills that might be coming forward? Have you done any of that work, Senator?
Senator, we have done a couple of different things. First and foremost, every member of the minority party voted for this in the Finance Committee. And then every member of the minority party, except for yourself, voted for this in the Rules Committee. And we have had dialogue with other members of the minority party, both myself and the Lieutenant Governor's office, on what we believe is the goodwill that will come out of the passage of this bill.
You have no more questions, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Hearing none, the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of committee, which is favorable to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. The question is on the adoption of the resolution by substitute. All those in favor of the resolution will vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. On the adoption resolution by substitute, the yeas are 29 and the nays are 21, and this resolution has failed to meet the 2/3 requirement for constitutional amendment. Senator from the 43rd, for what purpose do you rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 7th.
Without objection, Senator from the 7th is excused. Whereas Senator from the 8th, you're on standby. Senator from the 8th, the good man from Lowndes County, you up. Well, hold on, Senator. Hold on. You got to pull it off the table first. You got to pull it off the table first. Hold on. Don't get too excited. Even though I hadn't seen you move quite like that before, man. You look like you were going to get some blueberries.
You know, Mr. President, I ran a 6 flat 40 in high school, so that
I believe it. I believe it.
Mr. President, I'd like to please pull SB 458 off the table, please.
Secretary, read the caption.
SB 458 by Goodman of the 8th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 41 of Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to residential and commercial general contractors so as to provide for licensure of home inspectors, to provide for reciprocity of licensure, to provide for licensure of companies performing home inspections, to provide for minimum requirements to apply for licensure, to provide for continuing education requirements, to require home inspections, to maintain insurance, to provide for standards of practice and unfair trade practices, to provide for exceptions, to provide for definitions, to provide for a short title, to provide for legislative purpose, to provide for related matters, to repeal existing laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that completes the order.
All right, the senator from the 8th has moved that Senate Bill 458 be removed from the table. Is there objection? Secretary will read the remaining caption.
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities recommend that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully admitted, Senator Cowsert of the 46th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 458, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 41 of Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to residential and commercial general contractors so as to provide for licensure of home inspectors, to provide for reciprocity of licensure, to provide for licensure of companies performing home inspections, to provide for minimum requirements, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Recognize the senator from the 8th to speak to Senate Bill 458.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just home inspectors licensing bill. Basically, there's 42 states that already have some form of license. Right now, my 21-year-old son, that's University of Georgia, who doesn't know anything about building a house or inspecting homes, could go out there and call himself a home inspector. So what this bill basically does, I work with the governor's office, I work with the Regulated Industries Committee, and we just are basically coming up with just some, you have to just show some minimal core competency that you know what you're doing. And it also requires home inspectors to carry liability insurance. Our homes are most people's biggest asset, and I think that we want people to make sure that the people that are conducting these home inspections know what they're doing. And so this is just a good, simple consumer protection bill. And with that, Mr. President, I'm going to yield the well because I'm taking up somebody else's time. I would urge your favorable consideration.
Senators yield the well. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none, and the previous question is ordered. Question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Hearing none, the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing the report of the committee which is favorable to pass the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none, and the question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 46, the nays are 2. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Chair recognizes the senator from the 46th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that Senate Resolution 875 be removed from the table.
Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Resolution 875 by Senator Cowsert of the 46th and others, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to provide for statewide grand juries, to provide for the jurisdiction, powers, and duties of statewide grand juries, to authorize the General Assembly to provide by law for procedures for the summoning and impaneling of statewide grand juries, to provide for a presiding judge, to provide that the Attorney General or his or her designee shall act as the legal advisor and prosecutor for such statewide grand juries, to provide for the submission of this amendment for ratification or rejection, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that completes the order.
The senator from the 46th has moved that SR 875 be removed from the table. Is there objection? There is objection. All right, those in favor of removing the bill from the table will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay, the red button. The Secretary will unlock the machine. Senator from the 41st, what purpose do you rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true that this is another bill that requires 2/3 votes and the minority party isn't here to play today?
Senator knows of which she speaks. On the motion to remove the bill from the table, the yeas are 29, the nays are 20, and the motion has prevailed, and SR 875 is removed from the table. Senator from the 43rd, what purpose do you rise?
I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 17th.
All right, is there objection to excusing the member from the 17th? Without objection, he's a member from the 17th excused. I didn't know if we'd have objection to that too. Secretary, read the caption to Senate Resolution 875. Let me get your attention, Senators.
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Investigations recommend that this resolution do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Cowsert of the 46th District Chairman. Mr. President, that completes the order.
I recognize the senator from the 46th to speak to Senate Resolution 875.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the place that used to be bipartisan love just before dinner. Now, I guess I'm going to have to use all my skills as an old country lawyer here to try to get you all to see the light. Now, listen, really, all we're doing is letting the people of the state of Georgia vote as to whether they want to take politics out of prosecutions. We have just been through 6 years of bickering over the 2020 election. And no side is going to be happy as long as they think the motivation for prosecutions of election fraud, violation of election laws, campaign finance laws are politically motivated rather than trying to seek justice. All this does is let the Attorney General be the person prosecuting those type of crimes. That Attorney General might be a Democrat next time, but they're going to be elected statewide from the majority of the people of Georgia instead of from any one county. The prosecutor in the Fulton County case that indicted all kind of people, including the President of the United States, got removed from the case for not being impartial. And then the case was reviewed by prosecuting attorney's counsel and determined to be groundless, to not be substantially backed up by facts and evidence, and the judge then dismissed the case. And what did we all accomplish? We just fanned the fires of partisan rancor, and all the Republicans said that this was being brought just for political reasons to harm Trump. And all the Democrats said Trump's a crook, trying to fix the election. We can't have this. And all the people in the state, except the residents of Fulton County, are sitting from the outside looking in, and they're saying, why don't we have a say-so in this? Why does the Fulton County DA be the only person that gets to prosecute election crimes just because the capital is in Fulton County? That doesn't make sense. I can go into as much detail as you want, other than to tell you this is narrowly drawn only to apply to election violations, election law, voting violations, or election laws, and anything related to that. It's not any other matters, and it's any county. It was, yeah.
Senator, hold on just a second. All right, Senators, let's be courteous and give him our attention, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I won't be long. There was an allegation of election wrongdoing in Coffee County. That violation occurred in Coffee County. Ordinarily, that should be prosecuted in Coffee County. Instead, we had this RICO charge to allow those people to be co-defendants with people here in Fulton County. And it didn't make sense to try to drag them up here. That was a local issue. This allows the Attorney General to prosecute in any county if you're interfering with elections that are either state or federal elections. We already have a statewide grand jury list. It is a statewide list. I helped pass the bill back, I think it was 2011. This allows the Chief Justice of the Georgia Supreme Court to name a Superior Court judge to monitor the grand jury and handle any prosecution for indictments coming out of it. It is fair, it is balanced, and it applies to every county in the state for an official that's elected statewide to deal with prosecutions of violations of state or federal elections. Doesn't interfere with county elections or any local business. And I have a provision in here where they can use the counsel of and the assistance of any local district attorney that might be involved as well. I think it makes sense, and I think we need to put an end to at least the perception of politicizing prosecutions, criminal prosecutions for political gain. We are all above that. And I would ask the minority party to join in and agree here, because you know how this thing turns around. One day it's going to be your day in the Attorney General's office. And you're going to wish at that time that you had somebody elected statewide to make those decisions. Have you thought about how many counties in the state are red? Think how you would feel if a Republican district attorney down in whatever your county might be starts prosecuting Democrats for alleged election fraud. You would be like, wait a second. How do you think you're in charge of that? You're just playing politics. You're trying to beat down an opponent for a Republican candidate here. Let's all rise above this. Let's put this in a statewide office with grand jurors from all over the state to look at the issues fairly and dispassionately and non-politically, just on election law violations. And that's why I'm asking for your support of this resolution. You're correct, Minority Leader, it takes a 2/3 vote. We have to have both parties agree to take politics out of prosecutions. I ask you to join with me on this, and then the next bill will be the details of the enabling legislation that I think will be very reassuring to all of you. Mr. President, I'm happy to answer questions if you have any. Otherwise, I'll vacate the well.
You do have a question. Senator from the 41st.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the senator yield?
To my old friend that was hugging me about 30 minutes ago, of course.
To my good friend from Athens, isn't it true that the Attorney General is a partisan race?
It is. It's elected by running through the primary process, but it is a statewide elected office. And if you look at your math here, your politics, the last two Public Service Commissioners elected are Democrats. Our two United States senators are Democrats. This state can go wherever the will of the people is. It's obvious the state doesn't vote a straight party line. Who's going to represent the people best? I'll take my chances.
Do you further yield?
I do.
I believe you're literally taking your chances, given that you are
I'm
probably
trying
seeking
not
that
to make
position.
this a campaign speech,
However,
but since you say that, that might have an effect.
But do you further yield?
I do.
Is it my understanding that your entire argument hinges on the notion that the AG is capable of prosecuting a case in a nonpartisan way? Is that your argument?
That is true of any prosecutor at any level, and right now, we've lost that perception, and it's best handled from somebody elected statewide rather than by one little county out of our 159 being able to have their DA make the decisions, who gets prosecuted, who gets indicted, and where to go forward or not go forward.
Will you yield for one final question?
Sure.
So you do believe that our DAs, all 51 of them, are capable of prosecuting elections crimes in a nonpartisan way. Is that not true?
They are capable. I think the last election very clearly did not, and that's why she got removed from the case and the case got dismissed. I do think she's capable, and I think all DAs are capable, and I hope they will. But let's take the political pressure off of them, the local political pressure, and let's put it in a statewide venue. I think that's the best for our state, and I would encourage everybody to agree. All you're doing is letting the people decide. If you don't think it's right, if the people don't agree, and they think the Attorney General is going to be acting in some partisan manner, then they'll vote down this constitutional amendment.
Senator from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. President. And gentleman, Senator Yield.
Happy to yield to you.
Senator, I'm not an attorney, and I'm trying to understand, given the history of our current president and the efforts that he's undertaken in trying to overthrow elections, and the involvement of our current Attorney General in those efforts dating back 4 or 5 years, how is it that and why is it that you think I should trust, given the current Attorney General, who's already been involved with our current president, this kind of power to empower these kind of grand juries?
Why should I think you should give power to an Attorney General?
That's correct.
Because they're elected statewide, and they're doing that largely on their reputation for being fair and impartial.
Senator Yield?
They're being elected statewide, and they're getting elected largely on their reputation for being fair and impartial.
Senator Yield?
I'll yield.
Senator, is it not true that his current Attorney General was elected by the Republican Party, not the Democratic Party?
That's correct. So you ought to be greatly relieved. He didn't prosecute anybody here. He could have indicted and prosecuted. You didn't see him filing any actions at all.
Senator, further yield?
Sure.
Wasn't he part of the Republican Attorney General's Association up in D.C. back during the time when Stop the Steal was being planned?
I'm not sure about that. I imagine he was a member. I don't know how active he's been or how influential that is.
Senator,
I don't believe that organization directs attorney generals who to prosecute or not, and I don't think the Democratic Attorney General's Association does either.
Senator, further yield?
Be glad to.
So, Senator, what you're asking the Democratic Party to do is to give a lot more power to override those Democratic elected AGs in the state of Georgia, despite the evidence in the past was showing that the current Attorney General has been a partisan hack. Isn't that true, what you're asking us to do, Senator?
Senator, I mean, don't even ask a question prefaced like that. You're asking me to accede to the fact that our current Attorney General is a partisan hack. To answer that question, I reject that notion. Tell me what specifically he has done that was a indication he is a partisan hack. I don't buy that. I don't think there's any evidence of that, and that's the type of inflammatory rhetoric that divides us all. Let's get past it. That's what I'm trying to say. The public is losing confidence in the fairness and the impartiality of our criminal justice system. Let's help restore it. Let's take it away from the 51 different DAs and let's centralize it with a statewide elected office. Whichever party wins that office has the right to make the decisions. Hopefully neither party would want to be using politics as a reason to prosecute anybody for election crimes.
Senator, further yield?
Be glad to.
Senator, what I asked in my last comment, I wasn't referring to the Attorney General. I asked in the beginning, isn't that what you're asking the Democratic Party to do, not your particular Attorney General? But since you went there,
well, wouldn't it be
accurate for me to assume?
Senator,
based on your comments?
Senator, hold on a minute. Let's stay on the topic of the bill and not get into character and that kind of thing. Let's just get through let's ask questions related to the bill, please.
Look, I can't assume that the Attorney General is not elected by running in one party or the other, because we have set up a primary system. And yes, they are elected in a party primary. That does not mean that they can't be impartial and fair. That's what we're looking for. People that will do that they will put the law ahead of politics. And I believe this model does that better than our current system. I believe we could pass a law restricting the jurisdiction of different DAs if we wanted to, and limit what they can, but this is a better way of doing it to keep the whole state engaged and restore our confidence in the system. That's where I'm trying to go.
Thank you, Senator. Just one final question before I take my seat, if you will yield. How many other states did you say have a model like this?
I don't know how many, but I know South Carolina has it. You know what's crazy? You know, one thing that got me thinking about this was Roy Barnes, our last Democratic governor. He introduced the same type of bill his very first year in the state Senate. He wanted a statewide grand jury with broader powers than this. This is not a novel Republican idea. Yet there are other states. I probably should have done more research to know exactly who, but I have personally heard from the South Carolina Attorney General, and they have this. And it works seamlessly there. And I'm thinking, it's a great idea. Let's learn from it. Let's do it ourselves. And I don't like this body making this a partisan vote. I mean, this is not just some pure assumption that there's going to be a Republican Attorney General next time or ever again. And if there is, I certainly hope it's somebody that won't be partisan in their application of the law and enforcement of the law. If I'm fortunate enough to be there, I assure you I won't.
No more questions, Senator.
Thank you. I yield the well.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection of the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none, and the previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Question is on the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor of the resolution will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the adoption of the resolution, the yeas are 28 and the nays are 21. The resolution, having failed to receive the requisite two-thirds constitutional majority, is therefore lost. Chair recognizes the senator from the 16th for a motion.
Mr. President, I ask that you would pull SB 424 off the table.
Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 424 by Senator Harbin of the 16th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 5A of Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the office of State Treasurer so as to provide for gold and silver specie as legal tender, to provide for a bullion depository, to provide for an electronic payment system, to provide for guidelines, rules, and regulations, to provide for insured deposits, to prohibit social credit scoring systems, to provide for annual reports, to prohibit taxation of transactions involving gold and silver specie and legal tender, to provide for an implementation date, to provide for construction, to provide for legislative findings, to provide for definitions, to provide for a short title, to provide for an effective date, to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Senator from the 16th has moved that Senate Bill 424 be removed from the table. Is there objection? Secretary will read the further caption.
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Banking and Financial Institutions recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Summers of the 13th District Chairman. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Recognize the senator from the 16th to speak to his bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. SB 424 is a gold and silver transaction bill, and you might say, what in the world is that about? Well, our Constitution, our U.S. Constitution, we're exercising our authority under the U.S. Constitution, which says that we can't.
Hold on, Senator.
Yes,
it's
sir.
getting a little loud in here again. Please take all audible conversations off the floor. Let's give the senator our attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Article 1, Section 10 says that states cannot print currency, but they can have the gold and silver depositories. And that means that the state has authority to hold gold and silver in the depository that they regulate or can regulate. We have currently Florida, Arkansas, Texas, Utah, and Louisiana, who all have passed legislation for gold and silver. Today, this is the biggest part of it, is it's financial freedom. A man cannot own a $5,000 coin, but with transactional gold, he can own $5 or $10 of gold through the transaction. So here's where we're set. A depository that is managed by or overseen by the state treasurer. There are the appointment by the governor, 2 by the House, and 2 by the Senate that are the oversight of that depository. There will be an RFP put out for the depository and an RFP put out for electric transactions. So today, here's a given question. I can take my card here and I can buy a Coca-Cola with just my card. I can spend my gold. I can buy gold at $5 or $10 a piece. That's no problem. I can buy whatever amount I want. It's financial freedom for people who can't afford it. That's what makes it really, really good. I have also a letter from the Departments of Audits. We did a fiscal note on it. There's no cost because the fees from the users go to pay for the depository and for the transactions. So there's zero cost from that standpoint to the state. This is optional. You do not have to participate, and that's the other part. Some of the rumors that are out, they're going to take, I heard somebody say they could take their wedding ring or nothing. All this is doing is giving the citizens of Georgia the capacity to own something they can't or have not been able to own previously. And it's economic freedom for all of us as far as that, no matter what our economic statuses are. It's really true money. because paper money is currency that we have the faith of the government in it. This is hard currency that we can own just like any other commodity. It costs the state nothing, but it gives financial liberty and freedom to all of us, no matter what our party stance or what our economic stance is. And these other states have done it. I believe it's a good move in that respect. Thank you.
You have a question, Senator. Recognize the senator from the 37th.
Does gentleman yield?
I yield.
So to break this down in plain English, isn't it true you have a debit card that uses gold through other means? That's
Yes, sir.
Okay. And even though it's not legal tender in the state, that debit card you used recently, isn't it true? You drove through Chick-fil-A, you bought a milkshake at Chick-fil-A for 0.038 grams of gold. Isn't that true?
Correct. And this would also make it legal tender so that if there's an increase in the value of the gold you purchased, if we consider it legal tender, there would be no income tax on the gain as well.
So you're able to use your gold as a real debit card in a practical way day in, day out. Is that correct?
Correct. I can invest it and have it and spend it.
Thanks, sir.
Okay.
No further questions, Senator.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Your favorable vote would be appreciated. Thank you so much.
Recognize the senator from the 39th to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. I write briefly in support of this bill, SB 424. At its core, this legislation simply creates a voluntary option for Georgians who want to protect the value of what they've worked hard to earn. As families across the country have experienced rising costs and the erosion of purchasing power, many people are looking for ways to preserve the value of their savings over time. And importantly, any gain in value will not be subject to tax. So this bill allows individuals, if they choose, to hold value in gold or silver through a secure depository and electronic payment system backed by physical assets. That is like the gold standard that we always had in place through 1971. It does not require anyone to use it, but it does provide another tool for hardworking families who wish to hedge against inflation and volatility in the value of the dollar. In other words, it expands choice. And giving people more options to safeguard the fruits of their labor is a reasonable step. For those reasons, I ask your favorable consideration. Thank you. I yield.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none and the previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none and the main question is ordered. Question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor of the bill will vote yea. Those opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Senator from the 35th.
Parliamentary inquiry. Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiries. Hey, y'all quiet down.
Doesn't this allow government to hang out more with the gold industry, more government, right?
I don't know what it does, Senator. You can read the bill. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 29 and the nays are 21. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. All right, all right. Senate will come back to order. Senators, let's come back to order. Chair recognizes the senator from the 25th for a motion. Senator from the 25th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate Bill 301 be removed from the desk, from the table.
Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 301 by Senator Williams of the 25th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 3 of Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to state flag, seal, and other symbols so as to revise provisions for the protection of government statues, monuments, plaques, banners, and other commemorative symbols, to provide for construction, to provide for severability, to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that completes the order.
The senator from the 25th has moved that Senate Bill 301 be removed from the table. Is there objection? There is objection. He waives. You withdraw your objection, Senator. Senator from the 55th, do you withdraw your objection? All right, he withdraws his objection. The Secretary will further read the caption.
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on State and Local Government Operations General recommends that this bill do pass. By substitute, respectfully submitted, Senator Dixon of the 45th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on State and Local Government Operations General offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 301, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 3 of Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to state flag, seal, and other symbols so as to revise provisions for the protection of government statues, monuments, plaques, banners, and other commemorative symbols, to provide for construction, to provide for a waiver of sovereign and official immunity in certain cases, to provide for severability, to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, minority report has been attached. Mr. President, that completes the order.
I recognize the senator from the 25th to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Y'all know I'm in the monument business. We passed a little monument bill a few years ago, and all this bill does is clarifies how monuments are removed. This bill cleans up and clarifies existing law so that Georgia's monument protection statute works the way the courts intended and the General Assembly intended. Local governments are given a clear, transparent process to remove unwanted monuments, including notices, public input, and relocation options. A statewide monument registry will be created to improve transparency, record keeping, and compliance across all agencies. I ask for your favorable consideration, and I'll yield the well. Thank you.
Senators yielded the well. We've got some amendments coming, so stand by.
Mr. President.
All right, read the amendment. Go ahead.
Mr. President, Senator Mallow of the 2nd and others offers the following amendment. Amendment 1, amend the Senate Committee on State and Local Government Operations substitute to Senate Bill 301 by replacing line 5 with the following: provide for severability, to provide for definitions, to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws, and 4, by inserting between lines 26 and 27 the following: such terms shall not include the depiction of any individual who participated in, facilitated, helped to facilitated, coordinated with, or otherwise helped perpetuate the Ku Klux Klan or any other domestic terrorist organization devoted in whole or in part to the principle of defending racial purity, upholding segregation, or any other motivating purpose of maintaining and perpetuating unequal treatment under the law based on race.
Mr. President, Senator Jones.
Mr. President, Senator Jones of the 22nd offers amendment number 2 to amend Senate Bill 301
by striking all language on line 26, beginning with the semicolon and ending with thereof. Mr. President, that completes the order.
I recognize the senator from the 2nd District to speak to his amendment. Amendment 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. Unfortunately, colleagues, those who are empowered to place monuments where they've been placed throughout counties and cities, the folks who happen to look like me and be African American may not have had a say-so and who was opted to have a monument created for them. And so this resolution simply provides that such terms should not include the depiction of any individual who participated or facilitated or helped facilitate, coordinated with, or otherwise helped perpetuate the Ku Klux Klan, any other domestic terrorist organization, because that organization in its history terrorized African Americans, and those that were a part of it should not be honored. And if a city or county chooses to move them, they should have the option to do that, to make sure that maintaining and perpetuating unequal treatment of the law should not be something we do based on race. And many of those folks have monuments and statues throughout. And in fact, just recently in the city of Savannah, we have Whitfield Square. Mr. Whitfield, who was a Methodist minister who operated the Bethesda orphan home, owned slaves to support and sustain that home. However, the cemetery was the old slave burial ground, and it is underneath Whitfield Square. The city just conducted a survey with ground-penetrating radar and discovered that there were 80 to 90 unmarked graves under Whitfield Square. And so those folks need to have a dignified opportunity to be representative. The square should be renamed, the monument should be moved, and we should do the best we can to eradicate a stain in our history and not perpetuate to uphold it. And with that, Mr. President, I ask for your favorable consideration on this amendment, and I yield the well.
Recognize the senator from the 22nd to speak to his amendment, Amendment 2.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of the amendment, which basically eliminates the line as far as protecting Confederate monuments. I think at this point in time, there is no doubt that when we speak of the Confederacy, the affront that it has to so many of our citizens, and there's no doubt that when we speak of the Confederacy, we're talking about a separate government that was established to protect the institution of slavery. The facts are so clear when we look at South Carolina and its declaration of reasons for secession. One of its major reasons is the fact that northern states were returning fugitive slaves in their mind against the Constitution, and that was one of their main reasons for actually seceding from the Union. When we look at the fact that Florida, for instance, one of its main reasons for seceding from the Union was the fact that it had lost its ability to continue with the safety and honor of the slaveholding states. And it's finally known that the northern states basically would not allow slavery to continue. And even Georgia even had similar type proclamations within its secession document. So there's no doubt the reason why the Confederacy was formed. And therefore, since this is such an affront to so many citizens, whether white, black, or Latino or other, we should continue to support it, should not continue to actually protect it. And in that particular sense, we owe our citizens better than continue to actually protect these particular monuments in that way. It is not about history. It is about the fact that you have persons who actually were part of an insurrection, actually created a civil war for no other real purpose other than create an institution or continue an institution of slavery. And that is something that we as legislators, that we as the people of Georgia should no longer continue to sponsor or continue to be part of. And with that, I yield the well.
Recognize the senator from the 25th.
Thank you, Mr. President. All these last-minute amendments, I just moved to table this bill at this time.
All right. Is there objection? By objection, the bill is tabled. Senate stand at ease. I don't know what we got left to do here, but Senator from 26, are you? Yeah, I think at the appropriate time, it's almost. While we're checking on one last thing, I just wanted to say Maya back there with the AJC, today is her last day serving in the Senate here. Let's give her a big round of applause here.